everyone. This is Michelle Biggs, CEO of My Best Everyday Coaching and Consulting, and the host of Real Conversations with Michelle. Coming before you with my second episode for this year, and it is titled Becoming Your Best Self, Managing Addictive Behaviors. And I have with me a special guest, Mr. Zachary Adamson. But before I bring him on, one of the reasons I decided to do the focus on this topic is we have as a society, we have thought about addictions from a substance abuse standpoint, and there are so many other types of behaviors that really do cause us not to be our best selves. So I thought this was a topic worth covering, especially with all of us being in our homes and really getting into behaviors that typically we may not even, again, think about as being addictive behaviors. But I'm going to bring on my guest, Mr. Zachary Adamson. Hey, Zach.
Hey, how are you, Michelle?
I say, hey,
Esteemed
hey,
you.
hey, Zachary. I won't
Yes,
call you by
ma'am.
my nickname. Hey, Zachary, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Zachary Adamson, the founder of Renewed Minds Ministries. I'm a licensed pastoral care counselor through the New Jerusalem Ordaining Council, and I'm a licensed clinical addictions counselor through the North Carolina Professional Practice Board.
Yeah. And I know when we talked earlier, and we've known each other for years, but when we've talked more recently, I know this is a topic that you deal with as part of your profession, right?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk. I want to go ahead and dig right in. Go right in. Let's just go right in. So, as I talked about it earlier, most people when they think about addictions, they don't necessarily they may not necessarily think of things that you and I talked about, like working long hours, spending a whole lot of money. We typically go right into things like substance abuse, right? But what are the similarities when you think about addictive behaviors? What are those similarities that we should be thinking about?
First of all, substance use disorder is a complex condition because it centers around, how it affects you. It affects everybody differently. But the DSM-4 or DSM-5 it deems it as an obsessive compulsive. It deals with the core of it is obsessive compulsive behavior,
Mm-hmm.
thinking and behaviors. So it affects your social, occupational, and everything of your life. It causes impairments, but you don't know because you're caught up in the cycle of addiction.
Yeah. And what?
Sometimes, I'm sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish talking.
And sometimes we don't identify the behaviors because we've been in the cycle for so long. Addiction is one thing, all right, but we have to also look at what we've become addicted to. Work,
Right.
like you said, is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talked about work. I talk about shopping because I know I'm a shopaholic. I like to think that I'm not in that space where I'm not taking care of other things around my household. But I know when I sit back and look at how much I spend, I'm like, dag, I really could have taken that money and done something else with.
Mhm.
And, being at home, especially during this period where I'm not going into an office, I know I definitely fall into the space of, being up, starting my day at 7 and sometimes every night not leaving my workspace in my home till 11:30, 12 o'clock, and that is not good either, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, causes all kinds of issues. But let's talk a little bit about what the causes of addiction or some of the symptoms that you find in someone who is in this space of an addictive behavior. What are some of the
Well,
signs?
again, it's steeped in there's a variety of things we need to look at. Of course, addiction can be a deeper circumstance or a deeper situation where we find out after a while that a person has been using a substance and or medicating by doing other things in their life to run away from trauma, for
Mm,
instance. I mean, we don't want to deal with the grieving of trauma. We don't know how to deal with it. So what we do is we keep ourselves busy and preoccupied with other things outside of ourselves. Now, once we start this behavior, we continue to act out in this manner. And so what happens is you oftentimes have problems with your marriage and or relationships with other people because you're so preoccupied doing things other than even holding a really good conversation or looking a person in the eyes, for instance, and
Mm-hmm.
having that conversation. So that's just one of the symptoms that you might experience.
Mm-hmm.
But there are much more things that are underlying that causes the person to continue to hurt themselves.
Yeah. You want to talk about that a little bit, Zach?
Yeah.
Because you
Well,
are an expert in this space.
yeah, right. Well, I'm a personal expert because I've gone through it in life.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, coming out on the other side doesn't make me unique, because there are varying aspects of the addiction. We get addicted to all types of things. We get addicted to lying, okay, and not telling the truth
Ooh wee.
and being honest with ourselves. We hide, we duck,
Yes.
and then we bury ourselves with something outside of ourselves. So, it affects us all. It affects our relationships. But one thing, Michelle, we can't do is we can't deny the elephant in the room. You
Okay.
have
Talk.
to know that you have a problem first so
Yeah.
that you can deal with it. Um, things that are associated with addiction is tolerance. Once you start using, you can never get enough.
Mm.
You might say, and let's not even talk about drinking. How about talking about just staying on this friggin' phone that this tube, and we stay there, we stay there, we stay there, and we can't get enough of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many people find themselves dipping into pornography, for instance. That's a
Mm-hmm.
form of addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and it destroys families and it destroys relationships and marriages, and it's happening as we speak.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the tube, right? But the internet has been, I mean, I think since we it came to life. I mean, I know I find myself sometimes I'm like, you know what? I need to shut it down,
Right.
right? I'm hearing a lot of people even during Lent season for those who recognize Lent, they're like, you know what? I need to stop. I need to not be on the internet because it's just taking too much of my time. And what you have to realize when you have an addiction, it is taking you away from other things,
Absolutely.
right? Which is
That's it.
what causes the problem,
Um, as
right?
I can talk about, my circumstances while I was in college, and chemical dependency had me. I was caught up in that. There was nothing else that mattered. Nobody mattered. And it took me down. Okay. And so I had to understand that I had a problem, even though I had people around me that loved me, even though I had marriages that failed because of my addiction. Okay. Because I forgot about it, how other folks felt. Or yeah, I forgot about other people were human. So
Mm,
I abandoned the family, if you will, and or the sanctity of marriage because of my issue. But there
right.
was an underlying issue that I was hiding.
Mm,
So these are some of the things that we deal with when we hide behind chemical dependency. We drink to feel good. We
mm,
drink when the dog dies.
mm-hmm,
We drink at funerals,
mm-hmm.
and we drink and we do these things because we've become um, dependent on them
Mm-hmm.
to make us happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think
Okay.
even when I think about the work stuff, I'm single now, but I know I spent a lot of time at work. Um, and doing work even when I was going through, the things I was going through when I was married. And a lot of times it I was walking away from dealing with the things that I was going through in my marriage, right? But again, I got so caught up in the
Mm-hmm.
work stuff that I know there were things that I did not do, right? Because I was so caught up and
Mm-hmm.
being a career minded person that I was, I look back now and it's just like, okay, even that again can hinder you in relationships and things like that if you're not careful. It's one thing to be career minded, it's another thing to work yourself to death where you are truly at this point where everything else is falling apart, right? You're not in touch with reality. And I'm assuming that piece also is part of addictive behavior, right? Not being in touch with the reality that is around you.
Mhm.
Correct? Yeah.
A lot of things. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We come to
Okay.
school. We came to Buck State, UB, and guess
Yep.
what? We left issues at home with our parents.
Yeah.
So what we were doing, we were hiding from ourselves.
Mhm.
So it's more than just drugs. I mean, what's a drug? Coffee? Oh, what's a drug? Tobacco? But there's a more pervasive issue going on. How about gambling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just not the things that we see, it's the behavior. It's the thinking first, but it's the behavior that follows. And
Mm.
if we have no control over it, how do we discipline ourselves? How do we get back to where we need to be? Personally, there was a spiritual essence that was tied to getting me out of that piece, helping me get away from one aspect of a bigger problem. But
Right.
I was still left with me. We're
Right.
still left with ourselves.
Right.
Um,
It's
you
fun.
know,
As you were talking, I heard you say it's the thinking first and then it's the behavior.
absolutely. It's how we think. Michelle, you don't mind me saying that, we're trying to integrate spirituality with mental health. We have, in religion,
Mm.
spirituality, okay, religion and mental health. We have to find ourselves back to where we need to be. They separated spirituality and religion and felt mental health is one aspect. We have to begin to look at what's really going on the inside of us and be unafraid to challenge ourselves at this time because we are awakeners. We're waking up to why we deadened our feelings in the first place.
Mm.
It's bigger than drugs.
Mhm.
It's bigger than drugs. It's not just drugs. It's keeping you blind to the reality of who you are.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
my take on this whole piece and getting set free from the bondage that I was in. I didn't want to go into bondage.
Yeah.
This is how I used it. This is what I was told was the best thing to do.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah. It is almost
it's pervasive.
it is and again when I think about addiction, it is taking our minds off of the things that we are really having to deal with, right? It's an escape mechanism, right? A
Absolutely,
coping mechanism too in some instances.
absolutely.
Okay, so based on your experience, what are the keys to someone overcoming an addiction?
Uh, First, Michelle, you have to know you have a problem. You
Mm.
got to know you got a problem. The denial syndrome is the biggest piece. I can throw water in your face, cold water, hot water, any kind of water you ask for, muddied water, Detroit water, whatever. You know what? Unless you understand that you have a problem, you won't quit doing. There has to be a loss, a level of loss somewhere. You have to lose something first. I mean, it doesn't have to be your life because it doesn't operate like that. But you have to lose something that's valuable. For
Mm.
me, it was the connection with my creator.
Mm.
I was searching, I was trying to fill a hole, but things outside wasn't helping.
Yeah.
So the best way I think to get to where you need to be in dealing with any kind of obsessive compulsive behavior is get a clinical assessment.
Mm.
Find someone that you can trust, a safe person. Get a private person, but get an assessment, and then they can discuss whether or not your symptoms are or if they're severe, or if they're not. You got to get peeled like an onion so you can deal with the true issues that's going on in your life, even if it's your marriage
Yeah.
in
Who
various relationships.
so if you have someone in your life who displays addictive behaviors, what advice would you give him or her Ray approaching their loved one?
Mm. Have compassion, have
Mm.
empathy, educate yourself about chemical dependency. Um, I wrote something down for folks. Nydia has um, a link that you can go to, and you can read all about chemical dependency. And they're not just talking about alcohol and drugs; they're
Mm,
talking about everything. Educate yourself. Understand that you have no power to control anybody. Listen, if they drink, don't drink with them.
mm.
You have to demonstrate. Look, don't tolerate it because we exhibit what you call inappropriate. We tolerate a lot of things, and it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Um, you can also go on the web and find places that might help, but your approach is not. It can't be aggressive. It can't be demeaning.
Speak more about that.
We can't make anybody do anything.
Yeah.
And the folks that hold on to relationships sometimes, even in their marriage, sometimes you can't make anybody do it. And because the illness is progressive, because it's progressive, um, we oftentimes think it's ourself that's causing the problem, and it just might be. But you can't control anybody or make anybody get help for their circumstance. They
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to do that. Now, if they lose the person that they love so much, that might get them to think about whether or not they want to stay in a relationship with someone. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? If a
Yeah.
person is using and they value someone else more than they value themselves, there's an issue. It's learning how to value yourself first and not get codependent, thinking you can control that person that has a codependency problem. You got
Yeah.
to step back. You're not
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And the one thing that comes to mind is the word enabling,
Mhm.
right? So, how do you ensure you're not becoming an enabler of that behavior,
Well,
right?
educate yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
educate yourself and know that the illness is cunning, baffling, and insidious. Some folks suffer worse than others. You may not
Mm-hmm.
see it. You may have a functioning alcoholic, working every day, looks good, but then there are some underlying issues where they're drinking a whole case of beer. That's
Mm-hmm.
just one aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, how do you deal with those types of things? Um, you can't tell anybody to quit doing something that you think is dangerous for them.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, Michelle, if I went off task. You can't make anybody quit. What you have to do is you have to understand that you can't buy them. You can give them your whole life and find out that you're still stuck in the same place where you were, even worse.
Mm.
It affects the family in a way that is unseeable. But Michelle, let me tell you something else. It's something called predisposition, family predisposition.
Okay.
In my family, my mother had 5 brothers and 5 girls. All of them suffered. My grandfather with an alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else was affected in one way or the other, and they died that way. Um,
Mm.
just this summer, my brother, my oldest brother, he passed away. But he didn't just pass away. He passed away because he mixed fentanyl and methadone together to try to kill a thing.
Mm.
He didn't. I know he didn't want to take his life, but these are some of the things that we do. We use drugs to cope, or other things outside of ourselves to cope and get through life, and on real pain. But
Mm-hmm.
we're not doctors.
Yeah. And that's the extreme. That's the extreme addiction piece, right?
Like that.
Where,
Well,
where you're leveraging substances to deal and to cope,
well,
right? Yeah.
how
Yeah.
about I'm getting a lot of calls from folk who are caught up in infidelity.
Mm.
Okay, they have sexual addictions. Want answers. I can't give them answers. The answers you can get from yourself and getting connected to your creator.
Right.
God didn't create us to be in a marriage with somebody that's killing you. We have to step back and take a look at
Mm.
what we are doing to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
in the name of thinking we can control somebody or enable somebody or give them enough to make them love us. People have to love themselves, Michelle, enough to step away and
Mm-hmm.
heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I, again, I can't help but keep thinking that when you're in this type of behavior, you're usually in it covering up something else. There's something else behind it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Nine
It's
times
the
out of 10, whether it's working, whether it's spending a whole lot of money you don't have, or
mm-hmm.
even if you do have it, again, there could be things that are not getting done because of that behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the addiction of the substance abuse and things like that as well. All of them tend to be cover-ups of something
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to get away from
Mm-hmm.
or not think about,
You can
really.
spend 30 years in active addiction, and when
Yeah,
you wake up, the loss is mind blowing. 30
yeah,
years wasted
yeah, yeah.
chasing a ghost or acting out.
Mm-hmm.
And when you wake up, I don't want to lose my wife. Okay, well, do something about it. I don't want to lose my husband. Well, okay, do something. Put the flesh under subjection. How? You
Right.
got to get connected.
Yeah.
These are real conversations, I think, Michelle, not just the drug.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's and I want to have these conversations because, like I said, when I think about, um, well, one, I'm a helper by nature. I love helping people, right? And I think that these are the types of things that people have to talk about
Hmm.
because people struggle with it. And again, you cannot be your best self if you are having these things going on and you don't get a handle on it,
Hmm.
right?
And you're hiding.
And you're hiding, right? It impacts you, impacts your relationships, it impacts you at work, right? As well, it impacts impacts your spirituality, right? All
Hmm.
of that. So, my goal through this series and even through my coaching is really to help people. How can I help people become their best selves? And part of it is just having real conversations about real topics,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is one piece of advice would you give to someone who may be overindulging?
Can't make you stop.
Yeah.
Today I was at the office, and my colleague and we were sitting across from one another, and I said, you know what? Uh, what would you say to someone that has a problem, or you think has a problem? Well, he was saying, just tell them like it is. That's the truth. Tell a person about the behavior that you are seeing. Let
Yeah.
them know that you're concerned about that. But timing means everything. Um, we can't just act like it's an elephant in the living room, Michelle. We
Yeah.
have to see it for what it is, and we have to perhaps ask the person if they need some help.
Yeah.
Let
So
them know
having
that you'll be there.
yeah, so having real talk
Hmm.
with that person.
Hmm.
Yeah. Cuz sometimes what I find is people see things that sometimes you don't even see, right?
Hmm.
Cuz you're so caught up in that behavior that you may not even notice that you're doing. It becomes a part of who you are, quite
Hmm.
frankly, right?
Hmm.
So I'm hearing you say having real talk with that person.
Real conversations.
Mhm.
Don't put yourself up on this pedestal as if you're better. The word tells me now, therefore, there is no condemnation to those. I'm not going to judge you, uh, because someone else that's more superior judges me, deals with me in a way that brings me back to himself or
Mhm.
themselves. So, I mean, I think that we have to be educated and go on Nydia. Go online. If you're online already, go online, and they have they have a guide, a research guide that will tell you, the principles of drug addiction. Educate yourself. Know that it's not something that's just happening to you. If you're suffering, other people are suffering just like you. You
Mhm.
have to step up to the plate and say, look, I'm having a problem with something outside of myself. I drink a lot and I'm finding myself blacking out and not knowing where my car is.
Mhm.
I'm finding myself being impulsive and acting out and um, going to bed with women or going to bed. Let's talk about that. Let's have that. Going to bed with, and you're married, going to bed with other people. And that splits the family again because we're
Mm-hmm.
unable to contain our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts in between the ears. And we have to ask ourselves, why are we killing ourselves in this manner?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you feel not worthy of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about self. It's about finding yourself in solitude with our higher power or the God of our understanding so we can find out which way we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any strength. We're
Mm-hmm.
not God. And, integrating both pieces, spiritual and the mental health, is key. Um, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Michelle.
some hearing, for the person who has a loved one, having real talk with them, and then to someone who's in that behavior themselves. So if I am the person who is displaying the addictive behavior,
Own it.
own it.
It's accountability. This
Yeah.
is where we are today. Own it. Accountability, for what we are doing to ourselves and other people.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, yeah, it's really deep. I mean,
Yeah.
there is another piece to this, Michelle, having this conversation. You know, if we have a chemical dependency problem, that's one aspect. If we have depression or anxiety or schizophrenia and or other mental health issues, and we are not aware of that, we've been medicating ourselves to cope with these other issues, and because having a mental health issue is people judge because they're ignorant. uh, it's an issue. We stop using alcohol, stop drinking because we're hearing voices, or because we're depressed and it makes us feel good. We have to deal with the core problem.
Yeah. Goes back to what you said earlier. What's the underlying issue?
What is the underlying issue?
Yeah, and it's funny, not funny, but when you mention depression and things like that, those are things that can cause us to do a lot of things. I mean, even shopping, right? I shop. Someone who can shop a lot, it's like, are you trying to make yourself feel better? Like, what is it behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have so many clothes that you still got tags on them because you're not you're not really wearing them. You're just
That's
buying,
it.
right? So
That's
what are
it.
you doing? What's behind it, right?
Right.
Working yourself to death. What do you do? Are you trying to prove something to somebody? Like, what are you
Absolutely.
doing, right? What are you trying to do? What are you running away from, right?
Absolutely.
So
You know,
Zach, how can someone reach you if they would like to use your services?
look, you can catch me on Psychology Today. I have a number you can reach me at. You can use the email that's attached to Psychology Today. Um, Catch up with me, and I'll give you some insight. The number is 704-727-4810.
All
And
right. And I'll make sure I'll put it on my business page as well as that.
okay,
But thank you for joining me in this very important conversation. Um like I said, real conversations is about just that, having conversations about things that many of us may struggle with, or we know someone who struggles with it, with the hope that something that is heard will move people to some positive action for him or herself. And like anything else, I want to make sure people do, you do your own research, everybody, right?
hmm
To make sure that whatever you do, it really it is right for you. Zach, I'm gonna put you in my green room for a hot minute, and
okay,
then so I can sign off. And I do want to make a couple more announcements. But thank you for joining me, and I'm sure I'll be leveraging you again. I know your number. I know how to contact you. So,
all right.
all right.
God bless you.
Yeah,
See you
thank you,
later.
Zach. So everyone, hopefully something that you've heard um, will motivate you to take some kind of action for yourself or even a loved one. Um, Zach said a whole lot. One, just really recognizing that you have an issue, also speaking to that loved one who is in our life, who might be in displaying those addictive behaviors, speaking to them in love, and having real talk, and then seeking help. Right, and that seeking help could be a professional like Zach. So again, thank you for listening in. I want to talk to you about some of the things that are coming up for my best everyday coaching and consulting, because my business, Real Conversations, is just one piece of my platform. But up next for Real Conversations, I do want to talk about next. I want to talk about caregiving. I would say over the last 6 months, in particular, I've noticed a lot of my friends and family who are in this space of either taking care of an elderly loved one, or they're in this sandwich space of being home with their kids and also having to deal with family members too. And it is one of those spaces, and I've seen my mom in this space. It can be very hard. And one of the things that I do know is that if you are not taking care of yourself, you will not be good to anyone else. So I want to tackle that topic next month. I'm also, as part of my best everyday coaching consulting, for those who are new to my platform, I'm also a career and life coach. And I am actually preparing for my next workshop, which will be titled Preparing for Your Next Career Move. And I will be putting some things out on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com, my best every day. This workshop is for those who are in the space of knowing what their next move is going to be, but just need that help and guidance in terms of getting to that next place, right? So I'll be talking about career versus job mindset, resume writing, interviewing preparation, professional networking, salary negotiation. So all of this in one meaty workshop, and you'll have the opportunity to ask me a lot of questions. I am an HR professional, 34 years in human resources. Right now, strategic HR business partner. So I manage things like strategic workforce planning and inclusion and diversity, leadership coaching and development, but I also have a recruitment background as well. So really, this is something that I love, is helping people to maneuver in their careers. Love coaching people around that space. So look out for a flyer that will be coming out next weekend, so the weekend of the 27th. And if you're interested, definitely buy a ticket. I will be offering up for people who liked my Facebook page since my last workshop. So in the month of December and January, I will be doing a raffle to offer up a free ticket for someone to attend the workshop. And you feel free to gift it to someone you know who is ready to make the next move. But thank you everyone again for listening in. I really appreciate you. And please, 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 if you're have not liked my page, please like it. Facebook.com, my best everyday coaching consulting. I on that page I provide tips, inspirational messages, and of course I advertise all the things that I'm doing at any given time of the month. Okay. Until then, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. Stay safe.